happy Tuesday, everybody. It's Poppy, and you're at Poppy's Place. And I am so glad you stopped by. This is going to be so much fun. Because tonight, okay, I got to give you a precursor before I even go into what we're doing tonight. Because that just ain't even going to be fun if I don't tell you what's going on. I mean, basically, you have all heard, of, especially at, St. Patrick's Day, everybody does corned beef and cabbage. That's a thing. Now, I did not eat real corned beef and cabbage until I was an adult, because growing up, my mom made something that kind of originated out of the World War II era, where she would actually make corned beef and cabbage with canned corned beef. And so it was kind of like this southern thing. There was no potatoes in it. It was the cabbage and onions, and we used bacon and the corned beef, and it was just amazing. And so tonight, I'm going to make corned beef cabbage, not corned beef brisket like you might be thinking of at St. Patrick's Day, but this is something I make a good 5 or 6 times a year. The fam loves it. I think my oldest daughter and her family are coming over. They're going to eat some of it too. I'm going to cook that corned beef and cabbage, but I'm also going to make some fried taters, because they're good. I won't do that on camera because that's just a me thing. We're going to do some fried taters and onions, and then I'm going to make hoe cakes. Yes. So basically a hoe cake is like cornbread, but it's pancake like cornbread. So you fry it up in the pan. It's so good. So we'll go into all of that tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll get you some ingredients momentarily. I just want to thank you for dropping by. Thank you for liking and for subscribing. Thank you. If you notice, I shaved my crazy bushiness off my face. Isn't it amazing? You get the close-up view of how beautiful I really am without shrubbery around my mouth. Thank you for coming out and joining me out here at Pop's Place. We're gonna have a lot of fun tonight, and I'll be right back to show you some ingredients, so don't go away. Okay, so the corned beef and cabbage, that is a super simple dish. We're not gonna go crazy with that at all. Literally, it is, I've got 2 cans of corned beef. I'm going to use about a ½ pound of bacon. I've got cabbage that we will shred up, and then I've got 1 sweet onion that I'll cook in with that. Now for the hoe cakes, we have self-rising flour, self-rising cornmeal, we have 2 eggs, we've got a little bit of sugar, we have salt, I have buttermilk, I have oil, I have butter, and of course, what could you do in the South without a little bit of bacon grease? And we'll add to that about a ½ cup of water, but we'll put all of this together and I'll bring you along for the ride. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. It is such a great Southern meal. Anyhow, we'll get to it momentarily. Jump right into corned beef and cabbage. All right, so now before I start frying bacon, I'm gonna put me an apron on because that could be ugly. Poppy is first going to slice up this cabbage. And again, we're gonna do a rough chop. We're not going crazy. I always try to keep a big bowl close by because that cabbage is going to fill up this cutting board very, very quickly. So I tend to keep a bowl handy to put my cabbage in. I've got to cut up my onions too. And the first thing we're actually going to fry when we're making the corned beef and cabbage is the bacon, believe it or not. So we want to render that bacon grease, and that makes for an amazing meal. So yes, it's not healthy. If you've got a cholesterol problem, I'm sorry. Tell the doctor, talk to Jesus. I don't know what to tell you. I do know that there are some dishes that I can't do them without some bacon grease, y'all. I've tried. I know I'm fat. I know. But there's something magical that happens with bacon grease. So, yes, I'm going to be using a ½ pound of bacon, and I will fry that up in small pieces, and we will crumble that. I'm going to use my big red pot to do it, I think. And we'll cut all of this up. Looks absolutely great. I'm just going to cut this up into some big chunks. Now, you're going to have a lot of cabbage with a head of cabbage. Standard head of cabbage is a lot of cabbage, but you got to think that's going to cook down quite a bit. It takes a good bit to do it. I still got to make the hoe cakes. It's homemade. And people ask, how do we know it's homemade? I'll be like, because this hoe made it. Anyway, so we're putting the cabbage in here. Y'all, I'm only kidding. You know that, right? Anyway, okay, so big old bowl of cabbage, correct? So we will slice up our onion, and we'll try to share the board with onion and the bacon. We'll come back for this, not too big a deal. I'm gonna just go ahead and take that outer layer. The outer layer of the onion is generally always kind of rubbery and not very appetizing, so you know, I'm not gonna go too crazy about losing that outer layer. Doesn't help me very much. Definitely not something cute. Just be careful, don't cut yourself. Poppy will feel bad if you cut your fingers doing his onion. So, all right, so again, just a rough chop. I don't need super small because this is going to cook down real good, and we like it this way. All right. Now this one has a pretty good core in the middle of it, and I definitely don't want to cook that core, so I'll cut it, but I'm going to take them core pieces out. So I hope you can kind of see. My kitchen is not set up really good for a righty, unfortunately. But I'm a righty, so that is what it is. All right, so now we got our onions. And I'm gonna do about a ½ pound. So it doesn't have to be too crazy, but it's about a ½ pound. And I'm literally just gonna cut it into little pieces. We're gonna fry that up, we'll render it, and those little pieces I'll put out on a paper towel, and we can sprinkle this on the top of our corned beef and cabbage. Makes for a good dish. The other thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to cut up that corned beef. You know, the canned corned beef is fully cooked. This is what the poor people used, and this is what I grew up eating. So we're going to do this. All right, so now in a moment we'll come back with my red pot. We'll start frying up the bacon. We'll get in the onions. We'll add in the cabbage, and then we'll be ready to go on with our hoe cakes. Okay, so the first step is we're going to fry up this bacon. Now just cut these into little pieces. We're going to let this fry until it's nice and crispy, until it renders good. Then we'll add our onions and allow those to cook. I take the bacon out because I kind of have this thing about bacon. I don't want the bacon to be soggy in the dish. I like to sprinkle it on the top. I like it to be nice and crispy. Everybody's got their opinions about that, but to me, soggy bacon is kind of gross. So Poppy really prefers a nice hard cooked bacon, if you know what I'm saying. So we shall fry that bacon. All right, y'all, so now this pan looks like it is ruined, and I promise you it's not, because I do this pretty regular. We're gonna probably turn that down a little bit though, kind of hot. Get this bacon out of there. We got enough of them bacon renderings, we ought to be okay. I'm gonna try not to die when I put these onions in there, because they gonna pop like a dog, but we're gonna do our bestest. Yes, baby, what I'm saying. All right. Yeah, the bottom of that pan browns, but for whatever reason, this amazing pot just comes clean every time. So we love it. You're not going to cook these all the way through. I'm just going to start getting them tender, and then I'm going to add that cabbage, and we're going to start frying that cabbage down. Doesn't take too long. I have my taters over in the air fryer. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail with those. Just we'll have some fried taters, and we don't want to deep fry everything tonight. So, woohoo! All right, those look like they're cooked pretty good. Let's give it a try with our cabbage now. Now that took every bit of my pot, y'all. You see that? I will eventually add just a little bit of water, but not much, because basically what we want to do is kind of a fried cabbage, okay? And I'm going to let this kind of fry down, cook down a little. It's going to be real good. I will put a little bit of butter in there. All right, so once we get this down, we'll come back and we'll start talking about some hoe cakes in just a minute. All right, so now we're going to open up the corned beef. And the rule for these is you put the key in and you wind it away from you. Your can is kind of upside down, and then you wind the key away from you. That's how you open the can of corned beef. Otherwise, you're going to break that tab off and you're not going to be able to get into it. So we kind of like that. All right. Now, this is hard to get out of the can. I'm just going to go ahead and let you know. I do my bestest, and then I start chunking and chopping. So that's what I'm doing right now, is some chunking and chopping. And literally, if it don't want to come out, I will use a spoon and just dig it out the can. But look what you got. Some nice big chunks of corned beef. That's kind of what we're looking for. If I throw this in the mix now, it's going to be just cooked to oblivion, and that's not really what I want. So I know you're like, canned corned beef, really? Listen, y'all, I grew up eating this. You are not going to hear me complain about corned beef and cabbage made like this, because my mama used to make this when I was just a youngin', and I like it, and you ain't going to change my mind. So now, if you will notice, there's a lot of fat on that, and that fat is what renders and cooks out into the cabbage, and it makes for a delicious corned beef and cabbage. So I will come right back when it's time to add some corned beef. We might actually put the hoe cakes together. We may not fry them yet, but we'll do that next step in just a minute. All right, so we're going to whip up the ingredients for the hoe cake. I love hoe cake, y'all. I'm going to tell you, I don't get to do them very often because I just don't. But tonight, I was feeling it in my bones. So we're going to do a hoe cake tonight. All right, so we're going to do a cup of self-rising flour. All right, a cup of self-rising cornmeal mix. So I will mix that flour and cornmeal. Y'all gonna have to forgive me because I do this from memory and I'm not measuring real good. I'm gonna do about a tablespoon of sugar, maybe a little more. Looks all right. I'm gonna do about a half teaspoon of salt. There we go. Yes, yes, and yes. Make sure that those are mixed in together good, and they are. I always like to go with my eggs first because if one of them happens to be cruddy, then I can just toss it. Or if I get shell in it, I can pick that out before I add all the other stuff and ruin it. We're going to go with our cup measure here again. I'm going to go with 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk, so about there. Again, I'm probably not the king of measuring. I'm sorry. I do my best. We got that. We're going to go with a half a cup of water, which, forgive me, I have to reach around behind you there. About a half cup of water. We'll mix that in. Keep you one more time. That's not dirty. Another one. And then I will go with about a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. Looks good. All right, so that's all our wet ingredients together. And I like to mix this batter up before I make it, just so it gives the leavening element of this the time to do what it needs to do. So I put this into my sink. Let's go ahead and we're going to just gently mix all of this together. Once you get a good steady batter, basically you want a thick batter. That's what you're wanting. You don't want it to run all over the pan when you're cooking it. And I do recommend you get a good nonstick pan to make a hoe cake. It's better that way. So we'll probably dip this out in 1/4 cup measures into a hot pan. And we'll do that in just a few minutes, but I'm going to go ahead. We'll get back to the corned beef and cabbage first. So. All right, so now I just added a half cup of water, and I'm going to turn this way down because what I want this cabbage to do is to steam down. We're going to add the lid in just a moment, but before I do that, I am going to add salt, pepper, and garlic powder, which I pretty much put in everything that I cook. I bake a cake, I'm going to put salt, pepper, and garlic powder. I'd say probably about 2 teaspoons total. We're going to mix that in. It's going to be delightful. We're going to let all of those beautiful pan drippings and stuff that was stuck to the bottom. You think, oh, you burned your pan. No, I didn't. That is my flavor, baby. That is so delightful. Okay, so now we got some good water in there. Now I'm going to let this Dutch oven do what it does best. I'm going to put this lid on it. I have turned the temperature down, and we're going to let that sit there. In a few minutes, just before it's ready to serve, we'll put that corned beef on top and give it about 10 minutes to cook down. All right, the reasonable first thing we're going to do first for our hoe cakes is we're going to drop butter in the pan. You think, ooh, that's a lot of butter. Yes, it is. Glad you noticed. Glad you made the observation. No self-respecting Southerner would have bacon grease go to waste. So literally, I put, ooh, look at there what's happening with my pan of delicious, beautiful cabbage here. It must be boiling over. Looks good. Okay. We'll let it go. All right, so I am melting this butter and this bacon grease. Literally, when I fry bacon, I put it in a mason jar and I keep it in my fridge. Because let me tell you, when you're making southern food, if you are flavoring beans, or you're flavoring greens, or you're flavoring your veggies that you like southern cooked, I'm not talking about them microwave steam things that people are doing now. I'm talking about good old southern cooked vegetables, the way the good Lord intended. You absolutely want to get those done just right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that kind of melt real good. That's looking nice and yummy. Give me a spatula here. That'll be fine. All right, and I'm going to begin with 1/4 cup measures for my hoe cakes. I've got a plate over there on the side. We're not going to go crazy with them. Just going to let them start frying up. When you start seeing bubbles, it's the same as pancakes. You can flip them over. And these hoe cakes, oh my goodness, they're so good. So we're going to do that. Give them just a minute. All right, so now my hoe cakes are frying. Now I'm going to add my corned beef. And I'm not going crazy with it, but what I'm going to do is just kind of put it in here on the top. We're not stirring it in. I'm not doing anything with it. I'm just putting it across the top. And that heat in the pan is going to cause that corned beef to render its delicious juices into the pan. We're going to let that go, and we'll be right back. Now over here with our hoe cakes, let's take a look. Woohoo, baby! I'm not telling you y'all wish you was at Poppy's house tonight, but y'all wish you was at Poppy's house tonight, okay? Y'all always ask why I wear hats and something to cover my head, because cooking is not your friend. You know, hair's not your friend when you're cooking. So, all right, so corned beef and cabbage, baby. That's what I'm saying. And so I got to give this a taste. I've been rushing because my kid's coming. So, but we're gonna give it a try. This is country goodness at its finest, with cooked cabbage, fried down and stewed, and then that corned beef. You know, you gotta be a fan of corned beef, like canned corned beef, but I love it. I like corned beef hash and all that. So then these fried potatoes. Oh, so good. And let us not forget the beloved hoe cake. This could be my dinner all by itself right here. Not kidding you. Oh my gosh. So good. Okay, so that is it for today. Thank you for stopping by. I want to thank you for hanging out with Poppy after work. It was fun. We had a good time. I hope you're going to like, subscribe, tell people about the channel. Gonna be fun, you know what I mean? We are over 200 subscribers now. We're at 212. We're inching our way up just a little bit. And when we get to 250, that red pot that I used to make the corned beef and cabbage, I'm giving away one of those to one of my lucky subscribers. So y'all want to stay tuned. You want to keep watching. When I reach 250, you're going to have to look for the announcement on the video. So that's going to be a good time. Thank you for being a part of the Pop's Place community and for stopping by Poppy's Place tonight. We'll talk to you real soon.